Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are starting from Intellectual Poverty, Part 3. 8 Positive Attitudes by Robert H. Schuller. Registered. Intellectual Poverty. When I attended Hope College in Holland, Michigan, I studied economics under Dr. Edward Dimnant. It was said that Dr. Dimnant was so bright and so knowledgeable that he was qualified to teach my undergraduate course in the catalog of Hope College. He could handle biology, chemistry, physics, any course in the sciences as well as the arts or humanities. To top it all off, he was the architect of the college chapel. Such expertise was feasible 40 years ago. Today it's impossible. The simple reason is that the accumulated knowledge in this world is more than one mind can comprehend. The simple reason is that the accumulated knowledge in this world is more than one mind can comprehend. In addition, the rapid rate at which knowledge continues to be acquired through research precludes the possibility of anybody's ever reaching a point at which he or she can learn it all. As a result, you might accept intellectual people to be more humble today than they were 20 or 30 years ago. It would seem logical that such an accumulation of knowledge would mean the end of intellectual elitism and academic arrogance. I am not sure if that's happening, but the point is everybody is ignorant about something. Every person has his area of intellectual poverty. Let me share with you a personal illustration. I attended a tiny country high school in Iowa that did not offer geometry. When I started my undergraduate studies at Hope College, Michigan, I discovered that everyone was required to take 8 hours of science and that math courses were applicable so that I discovered that everyone was required to take 8 hours of science and that math courses were applicable to that requirement. Consequently, I found myself in a math course. The first week, the professor rattled off some statements that referred to geometric principles. Because I had never studied geometry, I didn't know what he was talking about. I noticed that the other students were nodding as if they completely understood. So I did as they did, thinking, I will pick it up later. The next week was the same. I didn't have the foggiest notion of what the teacher was talking about, although I pretended I understood as clearly as my fellow students did. But the truth of the matter showed on my first test I didn't get a good grade. Here is a quote included that you will never be licked as long as you know what it is you have lacked. You will never be licked as long as you know what it is you have lacked. Okay, then my professor approached me and kindly asked, "Are you having problems, Bob?" I said, "Oh no, I am doing fine." That was a lie. If I had been honest, I would have admitted that I had an enormous gap and lack from my pre-college work, but I didn't want to admit this fact because I didn't want the teacher to know how dumb I was. That was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. Poverty. Can it be a positive possibility? Yes, if it motivates me to a humble cry for help. Had I reacted honestly, openly, and admitted my impoverishment to my professor, I now believe he would have knocked himself out tutoring and helping me. After all, the deepest need of the human being is the need to be needed. After all, the deepest need of the human being is the need to be needed. An admission of my poverty could have turned into a positive possibility for real learning. I could have pulled an A instead of a D if I had learned this lesson. Success starts when I dare to admit I need help. When success starts when I dare to admit I need help. I have seen businesses restored, students graduated, and marriages healed through this humble and hopeful attitude. And I have ever seen it help parent-teen relationships. John was 16 years old. He resented the way his father and mother treated him and talked down to him. What could he do? He could split and run away from home, but things weren't that bad. So he pretended to ignore the problem by climbing up and refusing to discuss it. John began to withdraw more and more into silence, sulking, and pouting. John began to withdraw more and more into silence, sucking and putting. Then his parents became angry. "Why don't you say something?" was their frustrated attempt to converse with John. But his only reply was a shrug of his shoulders. "Something wrong?" his parents would ask. John would mumble, "No." "Did we do something?" "No." "Why don't you say something?" "What do you want me to say?" The relationship was at a stalemate until John took his beatitude seriously and realized it was much smarter to say, Mom, Dad, I have a problem with the way you treat me." It was the beginning of an open and honest relationship with his parents. Of course, parents also need this beatitude. I would advise parents not to be afraid to be transparent with their children. Show them your weaknesses. Don't give them the impression you are perfect. Don't create shoes so large that your child will never be able to fill them. Don't create shoes so large that your child will never be able to fill them. Be open. Be open too. Share with them the predicament you find yourself in as a parent. Ask your teenager, how would you handle this problem if you were the father or the mother? How amazing. Another quote. What is this pain? It is the birthing of a new attitude trying to be born. Emotional poverty. Cherry-born O'Neill, the daughter of my friend, Pat Bond, tells of her struggle against the disease, anorexia nervosa, in her book, Starving for Attention. When she learned to face up to her emotional poverty and to love and accept herself at the deepest level, she was able to overcome a shocking disease more widespread than anyone could dream. Anorexia, also known as the self-starvers disease, is a psychosomatic disorder that really begins on the emotional and psychological level and works its way outward to the physical level. By the time it manifests itself physically, professional help is needed because the external manifestation, severe weight loss, is just a symptom of what's really happening inside. Cherry says, I got down to 80 pounds. I was wasting away. I really was on a slow suicide trip because I hated myself so badly. I didn't feel that God could possibly love me, considering what I was doing to myself and to the people that I loved. There was only a faint hope that God did exist and that there must be some way out of my mess. There were times when I prayed to die because I didn't feel that I could come out of it. This is a common phenomenon in ourselves. Several times I also wished to die than live. This is our psychology. Okay. But my parents stuck by me, as did my husband, who literally went through thick and thin with me. Finally, we received some professional psychotherapy from a Christian psychotherapist. My husband and I moved up to the Seattle area, and through the course of 6 months of intensive therapy, I became better. I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that Allah led me to the right doctor at the right time. For within 6 months, I had changed from wanting to die to wanting to live. And I had learned that there were things about me that were worth loving in spite of what I did and what I looked like. Though Allah has blessed me so much, He brought me through something as traumatic and horrendous as anorexia. He has given me a beautiful little girl, and now that I am on the other side, I can give hope to other people who are going through it. There are almost 1 million people in the United States who have anorexia, and these people, as well as obese people, share a common problem. For all eating disorders have very similar roots. A lot of it has to do with that low self-esteem. Blessed are the poor in spirit. So blessed is Carrie Bond O'Neill. She dared to admit that she lacked self-esteem. She lacked the ability to lick the problem without help. So today she is happy with her family, her life, and most of all with herself. Blessed are you when you face up to your emotional lag. Admit your weakness. Blessed are you when you don't try to be an island and do it all by yourself. Blessed are you when you face up to your emotional lag. Admit your weakness. Blessed are you when you don't try to be an island and do it all by yourself. Admit your need. It's not easy, but it is essential. Admit your need. It's not easy, but it's essential. In all areas of our lives, the principle is the same. Happiness comes when you admit that you are lacking and where you have a need. Happiness comes when you admit where you are lacking and where you have a need. I remember years ago when E. Stanley Jones used to conduct ashrams, as he called them. An ashram is a term from India. It means a time of spiritual growth and expansion. Dr. Jones always began his ashrams by passing out pieces of paper and saying, "No one will see what you are about to write on this paper. I want you to write what you need is today. I want you to write what you need is today." It happened at every ashram. While people were thinking and praying and writing, someone would say, "Brother Stanley, I don't have a need. What do you write down if you don't have a need?" And Brother Stanley would say, "If you think you don't have a need, then that's your need. And then that's your need." And Brother Stanley would say, "If you think you don't have a need, then that's your need." If it is true that each of us is poor somewhere in our lives, then why are we so reluctant to admit it? Consciously or sometimes subconsciously, we develop defense mechanisms against exposure. We try to shield ourselves, especially in areas where we are vulnerable. That's true. We are reluctant to admit our needs because we are afraid that people might really reject us. We are afraid of public embarrassment. Actually, the problem is even deeper than that. It's a fundamental lack of self-esteem. We fear the lack of dignity that may come with rejection or embarrassment. What we need to realize is that we don't need to be afraid of embarrassment or rejection. What we do need to fear is the result that comes from hiding our lack, our need, our poverty. You may remember a time several years ago when the popular singer Tony Orlando announced, "I quit," in the middle of a performance and left the stage to the surprise of the audience, the press, even his associates, the singing group Dawn. Not long after that, our paths crossed and Tony shared with me what happened that night. When I broke on the stage, and that's exactly what happened. I just simply could not stand physically anymore. I was saying things that didn't compliment my family. They didn't compliment my grandmother who raised me along with my mother, who so desperately tried to raise me with depth and character. Then I felt a silence, and this silence was so loud that it was godly. The silence was, in my opinion, conscience, and that conscience was the voice of Allah that said, "Tony, you must take care of yourself." In my own heart, I was saying, "I have got to recuperate. I have got to reconstruct." So I said to everyone, "I quit." Actually, without realizing it, I really meant I have got to begin again. I quit means I have got to begin again. The media, of course, dramatized my leaving the stage and embellished my words to make it sound as though I was saying I quit show business. In retrospect, however, I can honestly say I didn't really quit. I just stopped for a moment. And then Tony referred to the possibility thinkers create when faced with a mountain. I will not quit. I will keep on striving until I climb over, find a path through, tunnel underneath, or simply stay and turn that mountain into a glad mind with Allah self. There is a quote: "If you are too proud or too afraid to admit you are hurting, don't be surprised if nobody seems to care." If you are too proud or too afraid to admit you are hurting, don't be surprised if nobody seems to care. He said, I quit when Allah wasn't in my life, but I came back to this glorious life and this glorious business when the attitude that there is no way I can quit. When I say I am sorry for having offended you, oh Allah, but I wasn't a friend of yours then and didn't know you loved me as much as you do. I was wrong. Never again will I quit. I will keep on striving until I find a path through, tunnel underneath, or simply stay and turn that mountain into a gold mine. To this day, I believe my career is more of a gold mine now than ever before.